Thank you for that. And you are right in time for Women at the Forefront. In case you are just joining us, karibu tena sana. I am Jain Wambui. We are glad you are with us. Remember, we are up and running. Our communication platforms are open. Use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle is at KBC Channel 1 across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. My handle is at Jain Wambui across the socials. So today on our Women at the Forefront segment, we have the pleasure of having Mary Mbugua, who is a counseling psychologist as well as the founder of Cappilon Counseling and Rehabilitation Center. And today it is going to be all about addiction, and more so addiction among our women. You know, it is something, just looking at what, research out there, looking at how far it goes back, even in history, matters to do with addiction were a bit discriminatory back in the day because they only focused on men, and women were left out when it came to research around addiction because they were not considered to be part of the population that would any way, shape, manner or form abuse any drug. So since time immemorial, it has always been against women. They haven't really been factored in when it comes to looking at the consequences of addiction as part of the population. But as per what research has had in the recent time, since women were brought into the conversation and understanding how addiction affects women, it has been clear that it is totally different than how it affects our men from way back then up until today. So that is what we want to talk about today. If you have any questions or comments, or you are just seeking clarification, we welcome you to talk with us using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya. Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Jen.
Thank you for making time to be with us today to talk about this sensitive but yet important discussion. Are you on the social media platforms?
Yes.
How can our viewers find you?
Mary Mbugua on Facebook. Yes.
That's what you use
for now.
All right, so Mary Mbugua on Facebook if you feel you want to interact with her directly. So before we get even deeper into this conversation, let us start by understanding you're a counseling psychologist, but a bit about Cappilon Counseling and Rehabilitation Center.
Okay, thank you so much, Jen, especially for having me, and good morning to the viewers. Cappilon started as a seed, I would say like a dream, because it came out of passion and it grew out of passion.
Yes.
And we are a community-based organization where we just started giving talks to high schools and to the people around the community in the areas revolving around addiction. And then with time it grew, and then we got to a place where we now started rehabilitating people. There would be people we talk to and they would say, I wish I could also have these services, but I do not have money. So we started off as a CBO, and we are on that note, and we are currently admitting clients.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Now you focus on both ladies and gentlemen.
We started off as women, but as we are growing, we are also accommodating men.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right, so now let's come to the topic of conversation today, addiction among women.
Yes.
First of all, what is the general opinion when it comes to addiction and the link with women?
Like you have said, Jane, it has been quite assumed for a very long period of time. Actually, the research only came after almost a century when it comes to women in addiction, because women are not perceived like people who maybe could be among those who could be considered like addicts, or maybe they were just overlooked, or maybe it is with time how women have not been perceived or have been perceived as a lesser gender when it comes or in comparison to men.
Yes.
So addiction in women also, we are not also at that place. I wouldn't say tumefikia pale yet. We are still at that place. We are still struggling, but right now so far so good, I would say. And even the women are still struggling to come out to say that they have that problem. So I would continue to urge women, do not feel ashamed, do not feel embarrassed. We are here as counseling psychologists, we are here as addiction counselors, we are here to support you. So if you feel you have that problem, just come out, because there are these social norms that a woman, a pombe, a woman who is an addict. We're still not there yet, but we are doing our level best, I would say. As a country, we are trying to forge forward.
All right.
Yes.
And I'd like to know from your interaction with the different women that you have been able to interact with, because as per what I found, just doing my research, there's so many factors that come into play where women are involved in addiction, as opposed to our male counterparts, boiling down to just our gender.
Yes.
Can you help us understand that better?
We can classify that as well in into some sects. Maybe we can start with the biological bit.
Yes.
You know, the way we are created, we have so many hormones, and our hormones fluctuate. Every other month you'll find a woman, the mood swings are high and low. So some really struggle with coping with that. So you'll find most of the women, they want something to just cool them down. Some it starts with painkillers. So you'll find someone, every time the menstrual period is up and the hormones are all over the place, so you'll find someone using painkillers. They start with like Buscopan, and then now it becomes a norm, and then they can now not have the menstrual period without or off drugs, even when there's no pain, because they're already accustomed to. So when they eat rings, I'm almost, so I must stock my painkillers there. And also you'll find that even recent research that we have seen, where they use even rats, the female rats, you'll find that the women, because of estrogen, they're more susceptible to getting addicted. Later on, you'll also find that research as it is going on, especially in women, as we have high body fats, even if you are smaller in size compared to men. And you see, and you see most drugs are designed to get dissolved in lipids. And actually, you know why they say bangi or weed stays in the head for like 7 years is because, you know, the biggest percentage of the brain is made up of fat. And you see now most of the drugs, especially like weed, they are made now to digest or to dissolve in that fat. So that is why it has its place in the brain. So for women now, imagine it is not just the brain, it is just the whole body. So you'll find us, you can take a drug today and then now you become hooked up so easily because now you have that environment ready. Also, you know, when it comes to body weight, ours is a bit low. So there are drugs that you'll find I might stay high for longer because let's say I've just taken a drug that was supposed to be digested or could be digested faster through now the body weight, I mean water weight in the body, and I have little amount, so the concentration will stay higher for a longer period of time. So unaweza kuta nilivuta shasha asubuhi and still maybe by midday I'm still quite high. Also when it comes to acidity in the stomach, acidity helps dissolve the drugs, some of the drugs faster, but now in women you'll find that our acidity is quite low compared to that of men. Also metabolism, yet to end up pole pole, for men it's quite fast.
Biologically so.
Yes, biologically. So you'll find that I might stay higher for longer. And also that makes me get hooked up easily. So we go to the social norms, I mean the social bit of it. So we find that women, we you know, like they say, mwanamke niye boma, mwanamke niye nene. So there are so many tags and so many social roles, pressures. The gender roles. Yes, there are so many, and you see, for some to cope. Actually, you'll find that many women, they are now using drugs to be able to cope, because you still want to maintain a sober mind in the evening when the children are out from school. You need to show them homework, you have washed, you have cleaned, you have been at work, you have been doing all that. So you'll find that it is also a challenge. And then also women are not able to come out more clearly or more early. So you'll find that women who are wanajificha sana, they will always hide. So till now it gets to the worst that you can even notice, and it is noticeable. Now that is when we get to them, when it is pretty too late. So when they're already
when it's already manifested in harmful ways.
Yes. So when they're in the very last stages, that is now when, not unless now these empowered women, where you see in a family where there's communication, that they can be able to open up freely, and in a position where maybe parents are more or guardians or the people involved are quite attentive, and they can tell through the time that there's this change that we have noticed, and that. Where caregivers are more keen, they will realize it earlier, but because women, we hide it, so you'll find that it is known way later. Also when it comes now to things like finances, nowadays women, we are empowered, so you'll find that I have that extra coin, we have this ladies night, you know, I can afford all that, so you'll find me going out, and then there's some extra coin, and that extra time I want to spend it on myself in the name of having fun. And then also peer pressure ingine, women, we do not have money, because now we have two clutters. There are those who are more empowered, and there are those who are still in the village.
Two sides of the same
coin. Yes, you're still waiting for the man to give you money, and then all that pressure now leads you to that. So those are some of the issues.
Now, you know, you have actually just gotten to my next part of the conversation, just looking at the drivers of, you know, addiction, and especially where women are involved. But I'd like to understand from you, from what you have seen, which age group is heavily affected or rather mostly affected when it comes to addiction and dependency on the drugs? Is there any to start with?
Initially, I would say there was. However, currently, Nakada tell us that even a class 4, the earliest one could be admitted at a facility, or the earliest one we could consider one an addict is from class 4. Initially it was all about men, and the cluster, you'd classify, especially during campus times and now the working class, in between maybe the early 20s, or when you're about that age when they get to campus, because now that is where they get overly exposed. And then now when it comes to now that time you're earning and there's no much responsibility, once women settle down, now that all that stops. That is what I would say initially. However, right now we're all over the place, I would say, and the dynamics are quite vibrant right now.
Class 4, that's 8, 9, 10 years they're in.
Oh yes, and you see, like the other day I was in a particular high school.
Yes.
And you see, you just get shocked. You just get shocked that even Form 2 are abusing. Even the peddlers themselves. We initially wouldn't tell that women would get to that level, and even if they did, they would really do it chini ya maji. They would really hide it. But right now they're doing it so openly. Some have even come out clearly to say, I'm not willing to stop.
Okay.
And I don't see myself stopping. So quite dynamic.
Now let's go back to some of those drivers, and one that I found to be very significant, and especially among the women mostly, has to do with self-esteem. Is this something that you can say, from what you have seen interacting with the different patients that you have, that has actually played a huge role as a driver and motivator for women to turn to drugs?
Oh yes, correct, absolutely.
Yeah.
You see, women, it is all about self-esteem, self-image, the self-concept in a nutshell. So you'll find that women, we want to be approved, we want to feel beautiful, and especially we lose it at that puberty stage. So because yes, I'm really struggling, so I'm struggling to understand my body and the features and the new developments. And also I'll find my friend ametumia barua, I've not received that letter yet. Does it mean that I'm beautiful or I'm not beautiful? This is one of the main leaders that is really pushing women to that. And when it comes now to intervention, one of the things that we are really key on is on life skills. So we do that training, and one of the topics that is given much attention is self-esteem.
I think we'll be coming to that in a bit once we get to the segment where you're looking at suggestions that are turning to healthy coping mechanisms, which I think is an area that is really lacking. But let's talk a bit about the more mature women. And one, or rather, I found a few factors, and I'd like for you to just tell us a bit more about that when it comes to a driver to turning to drugs and consequently addiction. We have seen mental health, mental illnesses, depression, anxiety, even the younger girls these days. There's so many that are suffering from some of these mental illnesses, and divorce also as a factor. To what extent do you think these two separately contribute to a woman turning to drugs?
There is what we call the genetic predisposition. So you'll find that when it comes now to the mental health, so you'll find many are born into a family or into a lineage, or genetically they're predisposed yes, to that. So you'll find maybe depression runs within the family. If they've ever tried, if there's a member who has ever tried to commit suicide, so that runs in the family. That is why you'll always, when you go to a therapist, they'll always ask about the background. We even take the genogram, because we want to understand, could it be a genetic predisposition that has led you to this fire? So mental health is a topic that we have quite ignored as a country, and that is one of the factors that I would say we are really struggling with. There was a client that I had who did not know, or who did not understand that there was that predisposition or that gene. There's something we call the X factor. So they did not understand that they had that X factor. Just 17 years old, so you find them hooked. And then she was just saying, I only did weed once. And why is it that my friend has done weed for all those years? I've only done once, and now you're telling me I have to see a psychiatrist. They wouldn't understand. Now what happens basically is, now that X factor, we are told that it lays dormant within our bodies till you activate it. Yes, once you activate it. So you'll find it, if I have the X factor within me, or that genetic predisposition, once I use not even abusing. Once I use something that now alters my mind, my body, that drug or that substance, so you'll find me more susceptible. I might even get hooked up. So it's like a Subaru umeifuel, you know, kukunywa. So you can be able to control it. I might not be able to control it.
Yes.
So that is one of the factors. When it comes now to divorce and
separation
and
or breakups.
Yes, women, we are relational by nature. We are very relational. We want to be loved. We want to feel pampered. We want to feel accepted. We want to belong. So once now that breakup happens, and then like I told you, the connotation of the society is women, bomani, mwanamke. So it is assumed, yes, mwanamke ni nyumba. So it is assumed that once it fails, it is the woman who has failed. So what did the woman do? Actually, you'll find the society judging the woman more harshly than the man. Now when it comes to that, now the whole thing starts playing in their mind. Is it that I'm not love worth? I'm not worth of love? Is it that I'm not pretty? Is it that I'm not the self-esteem? And you know, once they crumble, they really crumble, because we are emotional beings as women. Yes.
Now, looking at the different categories of drugs, are there any specific that are found to be the ones that most women turn to, that consequently lead to addiction?
Yes, mostly they start with alcohol, because that is something you can easily stock in the house. And then now you see with our current era, we have many bars in the house, so belonging to your husband, so they will start with that small. A tot, they add water, a tot, they add water, moving on. However, right now you'll find that they're now using many other drugs. Also something that they really abuse, women abuse, is painkillers. You know, painkillers, I would say alcohol painkillers, and also opioids. Opioids, things like ecstasy, because you want that extra energy. Morphine, they're also doing a lot of weed nowadays, because you know weed, depending on the quality that you're using, of course. So you'll have that one that will give you that boost of energy, because there's too much for the woman to do, I would say, in the current society. Also, the one that has been trending for the longest time now, until the government now had to ban it, shisha. You know, they find it more fashionable. You know, initially women used to do cigarettes. Now they find the shisha pot, and you see, they say that one puff of shisha is equivalent to almost 100 cigarettes. You know, that is something that they assume. But those are some of the drugs. But painkillers, and now alcohol, and also now those opioids. Yes.
Man, it's crazy. Remember, if you have any questions or you're just seeking clarification, we welcome you to share with us your thoughts. We are absolutely open to any and all forms of questions, grand or simple. This is meant to be an informative session. Now, I came across a very interesting statement that men are likely to abuse illicit drugs, but women are more likely to overdose, and consequently with fatal results. Is there truth to this statement?
Very true. You see, like I was telling you, once now they do this, so they experiment with rats most of the time. I think we are biologically, I don't know, I wouldn't tell, I'm not in that field or that area. So they used a particular drug. Let's take alcohol. So they take these spirits, and they subject it now to a male rat and a female rat. So you'll find that as the concentration, so they will start and then add on the concentration. So once they add on the concentration, the woman continues to take it as it is, the rat, I mean, but the male one would now start to dilute it. You know, and a sip kidogo, and then inaenda nakunywa tu maji kidogo. But the woman, you know, the way we are built, unaenda nayo iende. So you'll find that, back to your question, so you'll find that women, we will continue with the concentration no matter how conk it could be. And also, like I mentioned, things to do with painkillers. Painkillers, you know, these are subscription drugs.
Yeah, over the counter.
Yes, over the counter. You can easily get them. So that is what they use. Why? Because it is considered also by the society that kupata mwanamke amekalia sina tabu kwa bar, you know, there's that effect that woman might not want. By the time that woman is getting now socially ameshaji exposed, it takes a little longer. It is not the first time that a woman would just expose themselves. It is still now, you know, there are stages towards addiction. So you'll find ashatoka ya kwanza, ya pili, ya tatu, ya ine, maybe from the fifth now, that is the time that they are exposing themselves to the society.
Clearly culture also still still plays a very huge role given we're in a patriarchal society.
Yes.
Now let's come to those stages that you've just mentioned of addiction, and consequently just look at, the habits between men and women when it comes to seeking assistance. Take us through the stages of addiction.
Okay, so initially there's what we call the pre-contact. Pre-contact, it means you've only come into contact with it maybe during what do we call it? Sacramenti. When they
Holy Communion.
Yes, Holy Communion. Yeah, maybe you've only interacted with it during Holy Communion, and basically you've not gotten to that point. You have exposed yourself to that, or maybe cakes. There are those that they use as preservatives. Now that we consider as pre-contact, and then now we go to experimentation stage. So now that is the time you experiment. So especially to high schoolers, now that is when your friend tells you, if you want to be cool, take this puff and all that. You go to that baby shower, you go to that bridal shower, you go to that wedding, or even at home when you're seeking blessings from the parents, they tell you have to sip kidogo. Now you're experimenting, and most of the times during that stage of experimentation, it doesn't go well. A very few percentage will experiment and will still want to go on with it, because if it is cigarette, if it is about smoke, you'll cough a lot. If it is alcohol, many people puke a lot. If it is now through the injection, you'll feel a lot of pain, and you'll feel like that rush was quite high, and my body cannot be able to stand. Now when you move from experimentation, you now go to social use. Social use is where we might be considered as safe. If everyone was maybe, if people would only maintain it at the social use, then we would all be safer. Because now this is that once in a while, there's that wedding, and you see the thing with the social use, it means you still have full control. So I can offer you a puff, and you'll just once, and then you're done. It can stay there, it can remain there, or if it is a sip of alcohol, you'll just sip it. If someone calls you outside, you'll just leave it and forget about it.
You're still within your sober self.
Oh yes.
You have control, self-control.
You're only using it for leisure. You're only using it because others are using. I mean, that would be the best explanation. You're only using it now for the purposes of interactions and for having fun, and now for having that conversation going. Now we go down to regular use. Regular, now this is the time. Most of the times in experimentation and social use, you find yourself that you have just been bought for, you've just been introduced. Now when it comes to regular, you can now even pass by the bar in the evening, pass by the wines and spirits. For women, women don't just go sit in the club. Rarely do they do that. So you'll find, especially when it is starting, they want to hide in the past and then go kwacho. So that is what happens. So now that is regular use, and that can happen maybe once a month, maybe once every weekend, and then alternating weekend. It is not yet accustomed that you're going to use it over time. And then now when you get to that, now you go to addiction confirmed. So now this is the time. When it comes to regular, people will start noticing there are times you disappear kidogo and then come back. If it is work, you start now with the truancy, or maybe you start getting late. You're very punctual by 8, you're at work, but now, or at school, but now maybe 8:15. It's not that serious at this regular stage. Now when it gets to addiction, now this is the time now most of the signs manifest. You have now lost control. If it is a man, now he's already now out of touch even with the family. He's not providing, because now when it gets that 100 shillings, 70 has to go to alcohol, and then you'll find a man now using just 30 bob. For women, you'll just find ourselves no makeup now, not looking lovely. You'll find that now most of the attention now goes to, and now people can notice now truancy at work, at school, or any other place, and then you'll find now them neglecting the children at home, toto hajaosho, and then things like that. Now this is when you can really see, and when you can really tell that now this person, something is amiss. And then now you proceed, and then now the last stage is what now we call rock bottom. So rock bottom is where you have tried everything, and then it has failed. And now this is where now we tell the people that you have 3 chances in life, or now 3 options. So it is either, if you're lucky enough, you find yourself in a mental institution. If you continue with the use, maybe you find yourself in a mental institution like Mathari or anywhere, or you find yourself, even better, you find yourself in a rehab if your caregivers or family can afford it, or maybe if they're concerned to that level. And then now the other one is 6 feet under, because the continuity of now abusing the drugs, their health complications, their mental complications, psychological, even social. So you'll find even most of, like, I can give you a story. There was one day someone was sharing, someone who is was already recovered, and he was sharing with us a story about a friend. And he said that there was this time this guy just drank and he had lost it. I mean, it was past addiction now stage, almost towards rock bottom. So what happened? This guy went to, the way they say, the car knows the road. Unfortunately, alienda akashuka gari yake, and then he walked to a faraway place. He couldn't tell, he couldn't know, he was not conscious at that particular moment. So when he went, unfortunately, he slept by the doorstep of a certain grandmother who had been raped severally. So when the community came, when the grandmother went outside, so she presumed that this is the guy who has been doing. Now, finally, God has brought him, and that was how the guy was broken, almost every other bone in the body. So you see, even socially, people just get exhausted with you because you're predisposing yourself even to many dangers.
So much danger.
Yes, so much danger.
Now, this brings me to our habits in seeking treatment. Comparing us, the female gender, to our male counterparts, how do those patterns look like?
Quite low for women.
Yeah.
Quite low. Like I told you, it takes a longer period for a woman now to finally admit that I have a problem. That is number one. And it comes now to denial. Theirs is quite high. Secondly, like I told you, it is very hard to substantiate and tell this woman now really needs that help because they hide a lot. And once now they want to oversleep, they want to do all that, so they hide quite a lot. Now maybe till afike uko rock bottom, now once they get to that stage that there's no turning back.
We wait too long.
Yes, we wait too long, and by the time now you're coming, the liver is affected.
The damage is already done.
Yes, the damage is already done. And then you'll also find that I'm a woman, I have a family, I have children, I have a husband, so you'll find me now doing the math and thinking, how about my child, how about this and that? And most facilities, you cannot be able to accommodate a woman, 3 children, because they want to still keep in touch. Now that is also a challenge.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, due to the interest of time, let us now move on as we conclude this conversation.
Okay.
What are some of those healthy coping mechanisms that will help alleviate the problem and not lead one to addiction or being dependent to drugs and substance abuse? Healthy coping mechanisms and some advice to those of us who could be watching today and they may be struggling with one form of addiction or the other.
Okay. First and foremost, let us know ourselves, let us know our abilities. As women, tuondoe kasumba, like we are superpowers. Like you can clean, you can do everything perfectly, A1, everything has to be A1.
Super women.
Yes, we are not super women. We are human beings by the end of the day. Sometimes it is very good to take a break. When you feel overwhelmed, just take that break. Even when that child comes and they are all over the place and you feel tired, just have a way of explaining to them that this is not the time mommy needs to rest, mommy needs to have some time of her own. You see, don't struggle too much to be that superpower. I'm not talking about neglect. Do not neglect them, but just find yourself some healthy time where you can refresh, where you can regain now that power or strength that you have lost. Also, something that they can do is also join these empowerment groups. There are many empowerment groups because you'll find that, especially like you've talked about divorce, they're also widowers. Once the husband passes on, you'll find that they're more exposed to that, or they feel the neglect. They can join these groups, and that can be one of the places where they could get the healing. Also, and I would really encourage them to seek therapy. Counseling is there for you, counselors are there for you, so please seek the services because they can really help in a lot in avoiding that, in alleviating, or in preventing for to get to that point where you can only find the solace now through the drugs. What else? What was the other question?
When it comes to now seeking healthy coping mechanisms as opposed to turning to substances that numb you or that stimulate you, things like this, to just escape reality.
Yes, just don't numb your emotions, don't numb your feelings, don't let it get to that point where you only express yourself once you have taken the drug. Do not find the comfort or the solace in that. Yes, and also something I could also add also to the caregivers and also now the society. Maybe you can also stop now putting all those pressures on women and assuming and considering them to be superpowers, because we are not super women. We are human beings by the end of the day. And also women, if you're struggling with that and if you're just getting into that addiction, I would encourage you to stop it, because where you're headed is quite more dangerous than where you are. This is the time now to find for the right intervention. And now maybe you can seek now professional counseling, you can seek now those support groups and what have you. Yes.
Fantastic. I do hope from this conversation you've been able to take home a thing or two, especially so when it comes to picking up healthy coping mechanisms, because most of the time we tend to turn to those things that are not healthy, but they are, they bring temporary relief. And in the long run, they do have permanent damages. So this has been all about women at the forefront, of course, focusing on addiction, especially among the women, considering, there isn't as much information when it comes to addiction and women, but we are on the right path when it comes to setting things right and helping our women understand that addiction happens and there is always help. We have been speaking with Mbugua, who is a counseling psychologist, as well as the founder of Cappilon Counseling and Rehabilitation Center. Now, for our viewers who would like to get in touch with you, how can they be able to do so in case they have more questions or they are seeking assistance and they would like to, get to understand this whole conversation better? How can they find you?
Okay, thank you for that. We also do trainings. Allow me to mention that. We also do trainings. We go to high schools, we go to churches and women gatherings and also men gatherings. That is something that we are able to do. So in case of that, and trainings and seminars, in case of that, and counseling services, and also for the rehabilitation services. When you get to Facebook, Mbugua, send me an inbox. And also you can find us at Cappilon Counseling and Rehabilitation Services on Facebook. Should I give my contact or?
Go ahead.
Okay, so you can reach me on 0739 501 103. 0739 501 103.
All right.
Thank you, Jen, for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for making time to be with us. Now, this, as always, is always meant to be an informative session. We never mean to discriminate in any shape, manner, or form. And we do hope that, you get the assistance that you need from these conversations that we get to bring to you here. For now, we want to bring the program to a close. It has been an absolute pleasure having you with us here on Good Morning Kenya. Be sure to join us again tomorrow morning. It is bye-bye for now. We will be seeing you tomorrow. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.